have a lot of fun with an orchestration bot. Let's take a look.
Hi, I've created two Teneo solutions for today's episode. One will be our orchestration bot and one will be a so-called child bot. The great thing about today's orchestration approach is that our orchestration bot will be a full bot itself with all capabilities, with its own intent recognition and its own dialog management, but with the possibility to orchestrate user inputs not only throughout its own knowledge base, but also to connected child bots. So our orchestration bot will be talking directly to the user via a web frontend, and the child bot will be available to help on demand to consult further use cases which our orchestration bot is not able to handle. I hope this sounds interesting to you. Let's take a look. First, we are going to take a look at the child bot. So I'm opening this solution. The child bot will be called whenever the orchestration bot needs some additional help to answer a user request. In order to do so, our child bot will have to provide us some information around its conversation state. Obviously, we want to know the answer the child bot suggests, but additionally, we want information on how confident our child bot is that this answer is the correct one, and if the child bot has finished talking, or if there's an ongoing process which we should continue. Let's see how we can do this. Let's take a look first into the post-processing script here. So we're going to Solution, Globals, Scripts, Post-processing, and let's have a look what we are doing here. So in line 1 to 3, we are basically adding a piece of text to the answer of the child bot, which we are only doing here for demo purposes, so that it's easier for us to identify if an answer in the end comes from our child bot or directly from the orchestration bot. You wouldn't do that in a real project. But we are adding here this piece of text. Then in line 6 to 8, we are looking into the flow stack with the getActiveFlows call to see if there's still an ongoing process within this child bot or if the conversation has been handled so far. We're then checking this and storing the information within the variable asActive, as you can see here. And then we are providing the status back on line 11 as an output parameter, together with the top intent and the confidence score from the connected LUIS machine learning classifier. Now let's take a look at the flow, which is only available within our child bot and which is around buying an iPhone. So we go back to our contents here. I've got a folder called contents, which contains this flow purchase iPhone. Let's take a look. And as you can see, this is a very simplistic flow, right? So it will trigger based on the result of the connected LUIS classifier. It will ask us then if we want to buy an iPhone and just check if the user confirms or rejects and give us the corresponding answer. Like, here's your iPhone, or if the user rejects, what else can I help you with? That's all that we are going to do here. But the important point is that we have a follow-up within our child bot. So we need to be able to maintain this conversation with the child bot, right? It's not a simple FAQ. We need to continue a process. And in order to continue the process, we need to provide back the status of the bot, right? So that was what we have just seen. I'm opening it just again within post-processing. That's what we are doing here, right? So if the flow is still ongoing, it will send back a status of being busy to our orchestration bot, so that the orchestration bot knows, hey, our child bot is still talking, we need to continue there. And that's it so far with our setup here that I wanted to explain for the child bot. So we are sending back the information that we see here. And this child bot is published itself, right? So it's available under this URL here. And our orchestration bot is able to call it from there. So now let's take a look at our orchestration bot. So within the orchestration bot, I would like to show you first a file that we have uploaded under resources and which makes sure that we can keep the same session within a childbot during our communication. Let's take a look. So solution, resources, file, and there we have our Teneo engine client. This Groovy code makes sure that we can keep the same session when communicating to our chatbot when we send requests to it. And this is important, otherwise we would not be able to keep the context in conversations with the chatbot, right? So if we have a follow-up and need multiple interactions to finish a flow inside the chatbot, as we have seen with the iPhone, we would not be able to do so if we would open new sessions all the time. So this Groovy code makes sure that we can maintain the same session with this chatbot. Okay, so let's take a look where we are actually calling our chatbot. This is done in a global pre-listener. So let's go to globals, listeners, and there we have our pre-listeners. In this case, it's called call chatbot. Let's open that one. We can now, within the condition field, detail the exact criteria we want to use to decide when we want to call our chatbot. For this episode here, I'm going to call the chatbot on every interaction. But you might want to specify this further in your project to make sure to not waste API calls in your chatbot when there's no need to call it. For example, if your chatbot only handles specific topics, maybe you want to call your bot only for certain keywords. But that's up to you, and that's a good thing here. A lot of flexibility and freedom for you to set this up in the best possible way for your project. Let's see what information we exchanged with our chatbot. We can see this here in the execution script. So we need the text of the user input. We assign this in line 2, and we send it over to the chatbot by making use of the Teneo engine client that we had just seen in line 3. Afterwards, you see that the information that we receive from the chatbot. So we are getting the answer text, the status of the chatbot, and information from the LUIS model that is connected to the chatbot. The top intent from there and the confidence score, so that we can make use of this information. We store all this inside global variables. Let's call this our common communication protocol. The minimum required data we need to be able to exchange information between two of our bots. Please note that you could exchange more information. For example, the emotion that the chatbot suggests for the response to the end user. But that's up to you. Okay, now let's take a look at the flows that we have within our orchestration bot. So let's go within our solution to the folder, which is called telco here. Inside, there's one flow sitting, which is called bank account change. And this flow is only available within our orchestration bot. The trigger is all around bank account change here. The flow itself asks for the IBAN number of the user. And if it detects inside the follow-up an IBAN number, it will confirm the change of the bank account information. Otherwise, it will tell that it couldn't detect such a number. And that's our bank account change flow here. And then we have a flow within external bots, this chatbot flow, and this handles the conversation with the chatbot. So at the moment here, it's triggering based on the top intent from the LUIS machine learning model that is connected to the chatbot. So we're looking here for this purchase iPhone class, and we are looking for a confidence score higher than 70% here, or 0.7. Then we are displaying the answer from the chatbot, and what we do then when a follow-up comes in the next interaction, we are checking if the chatbot is still talking. You remember the status that we're receiving, if the status was busy. And otherwise, if the chatbot is not talking anymore, we are leaving this flow so that the orchestration bot can decide again who should take care of the next user input. So that's the setup of this chatbot flow that we have. Let's take a look into another great feature in Teneo Studio, which is the trigger ordering. So we can go there by clicking here on intent triggers. And the trigger ordering can be really helpful for an orchestration setup. So you can make sure that you test triggers from the orchestration bot or from child bots in a specific order if that's relevant for your project. So if you want really to decide which answer should go back to the user only by confidence scores from the machine learning classifier, you can do so. But if you want to fine-tune the whole thing, your intent recognition setup, you can use the full power here of the hybrid approach and the trigger ordering from Teneo Studio to make this work as good as possible. And that's very important for an orchestration setup in the end, that you keep the high performance that you might have inside the individual bots also when you connect them together into an orchestration setup. So this comes in very handy here. In my example, I've put in here the bank account change at the top within the main telco one, and I've a specific order group here for machine learning triggers where I have this childbot flow. But in the end, you can set this up as it works best for your project, and that's a good thing. All right, now it's time that we actually talk to our bot. So let's close the intent trigger ordering. You see that we have also the Teneo dialog resources here inside, the greeting message, the safety net, and the solution has then been published here to this URL so that we're able to talk to it now from a web front end Teneo web chat to do some tests. So let's go there. Good afternoon and welcome. My name is Orchestration Bot and I'm here to answer your question. Hi, how are you? Thanks for asking. I'm having a great time. And as you see, we are talking at the moment to the dialog resources which are sitting inside our orchestration bot. Now, we have seen that if we are talking to our child bot for this little demo purposes here, we are adding this prefix child, right? So let's ask about the use case that only our child bot can handle. Can I get an iPhone? And as you see, behind the scenes, the answer is actually coming now from our child bot. So our orchestration bot is consulting the child bot. Hey, you've got the best answer in this case. Go for this conversation, right? And the child bot indicates this is the answer and I'm still continuing this conversation because the flow is not done yet. So we have this follow-up. Do you want to buy an iPhone? We need to confirm this. Yes, exactly. And as you see, we have again the prefix child. Here's your iPhone. So we have continued the conversation with our child bot. The flow is now done. And the orchestration bot is able again to orchestrate the next user input to whoever could take this input best, either the orchestration bot itself or connect again to the child bot. But it's now considering both possibilities again. So let's do the bank account change, which is only done by our orchestration bot. We now proceed to change your bank account information. Let's paste in an IBAN. So we've updated our bank account information and you see there's no prefix child anymore here, right? So we are talking again to our orchestration bot. Thanks, that's all. You're welcome. And that's it. We have seen today an orchestration bot setup in Teneo. The big advantage of the setup compared to pure orchestration layer based setups is that you can make use of the full power of Teneo's intent recognition and dialog management. In this way, you can decide yourself inside the orchestration bot if you want to redirect to child bots based purely on the confidence scores of machine learning classifiers, or if you want to fine-tune the setup by adding certain business rules to the logic and by making use of Teneo's hybrid approach. You can also make sure to call your child bots only when required and save unnecessary API calls in this way. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you have any questions, feel free to post them below in the comments or within our Teneo community forum. See you next time.